Welcome to episode 66 of NF Show, NF Magazine's official weekly podcast. My name is Noah. I'm going to be your host in this episode. And of course, my co host is here, Evan.
Yes, Evan, of course, Campbell is here. How's it going, Noah?
Good. That's reminding me of something that you joked about earlier
Yeah,
as a middle name.
I have all kinds of middle nicknames.
This episode is going to be called Nintendo Land for Real because one of the news articles that came in from the last week was really exciting. It's about theme park rides, Nintendo theme park rides. So we're going to pontificate about that as well as all these other little news stories that came in addition to the Splatoon Direct that happened last week, which if you watched last week, you knew that I was eagerly looking forward to that. I even watched the Xenoblade Chronicles X Direct to get caught up on that. So I am all up to date on my Nintendo news. I'm looking forward to talking about it with Evan. If you have any thoughts or feedback on this episode of the show, you can send them in via email to show@nfmagazine.com, or you can leave us a comment below this video player if you're watching us over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/nfmagazine. We are starting a little bit late, inordinately late tonight because for whatever reason, Google and YouTube were not cooperating at all. And it was a bit of a hack and starting events and ending events and starting videos and stopping videos. But finally, we're here to record. And I'm looking forward to getting through this episode. It will be a milestone accomplishment for the day. First of all, talking about what we've been playing, Evan has no news to share, but I just wanted to give a couple little updates. I finally got a chance to play the new Mario Kart 8 DLC, and it is indeed as glorious as everybody said that it was. And I completely agree. The Big Blue track particularly is amazing. I love the Ribbon Road one as well. And I remember many people saying, oh my gosh, the music is so good. But I don't know if it's because I was playing at 150cc or whatever, and I was just overwhelmed by everything that's going on. I could barely even hear the music. I was just overwhelmed. It was a sensory overload of all the colors and the animations and where am I going? And I'm going up a wall and I'm going through a waterfall. So I'm hoping that with more repeated playthroughs, I'll get to appreciate these new tracks a little bit better. But otherwise, I'm still just as happy as I was with the first set of DLC.
How do you feel about the Animal Crossing tracks?
I think they're really neat. I like that you can have at random different types of seasons show up, but I lean more towards, I was a big fan of Neo Bowser City, so it's great to see that in console form. And then, of course, the Big Blue track and the Ribbon Road, those were really big standouts to me. And something that I loved about the subway track is it reminds me of when I was in Japan last year, the initial area where you're in before you actually go to the train tunnels, all the white tile and the way the walls look, it's exactly how Japanese train stations look and reminded me a lot of going to Tokyo, except for the part of running along the tracks and running into trains. I did not do that in Tokyo.
It's very Toad Turnpike-esque.
Yeah, it totally is. It's something that I need to slow my speed down on. I don't know why I jumped in 150cc. I'm like, I could do that. I definitely need to go back and play it at 100cc. Not 50. Maybe I'll try 50 if I'm having a really hard time. I was playing as Roy and I was in one of the new vehicles. It was like a 3-wheeled motorcycle of sorts. It's purple. Okay. Really cool, but my performance was rather subpar. But it was also some of that classic Mario Kart frustration where I finally started getting ahead and I might be in first place. And then somebody in second place gets a red shell. And I never had that happen once when I was in first through fourth place that I'd ever get a red shell to shoot at one of my AI opponents. But that's Mario Kart for you, for better or worse. But this really is one of my favorite Mario Karts, aside from the lack of battle mode. So I'm happy there's even more of it to play as time goes on.
Do you think battle mode will come? Because we're going to talk about Nintendo's financials some. And one of the things that Satoru Iwata noted was that they plan to do more DLC for their big name games to keep people playing those games like Super Smash Brothers and Mario Kart 8. So do you think, like I'm expecting more DLC for Mario Kart 8. Do you think they would put in a better battle mode? Do you think that's possible?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I just don't think it's a priority for them. I mean, we've talked about it amongst ourselves with the people watching and listening to the show, and there are a few people that had issues with battle mode. Almost everybody unanimously said, I play Mario Kart for the racing, not for the battle mode.
Mhm.
So if that's any indicator, and given that Nintendo does love to research things and seems to always find amounts of data that suggests its decisions are right, I don't foresee battle mode happening. But I agree. I do think we'll see more content for both Smash Brothers and Mario Kart 8 in the future, if only because it's a good way to keep people engaged with the system, because there aren't any third party titles, and so you just wait for months until the next big first party game comes out, and these DLCs are a nice way to keep people at least turning the machine on.
Yeah, I think battle mode could improve Mario Kart 8, and I think if they had friend lobbies for matchmaking, which we'll talk about in regard to another online game later in the show, and obviously voice chat. I think those. I mean, I'm not expecting voice chat, but those are like the three big areas on top of more courses and characters. And I guess the character-wise, what would be cool is what Nintendo property would they mine next? Would we see Pokemon? Would we see Kirby? What direction would they go into? I mean, I feel like Kirby would fit in with the Animal Crossing characters just being added.
So are you talking about a Kirby Racer added to Mario Kart?
Kirby the character added, and then a couple of courses
That'd be cool.
Based on that, yeah.
And then they could even cross promote Yoshi's Woolly World and pull in a yarn track. That'd be kind of cool.
Oh, but then they'll have Yarn, Yoshi, another. I don't like the palette swap characters. I feel like that's kind of. I mean, you're getting a ton of content, but what is it? Tanuki Suit Mario and Cat Suit Peach characters. I'm just like, come on, really? Yeah. Like,
not that inspiring.
It's funny though, because on the other hand, you get two different villagers, male and female villager, that are different characters in one. But then you have like two different characters. Like those should be palette swaps for the regular Mario.
Oh yeah, totally.
So it's just funny you have that kind of dichotomy going on within the same game or whatever. But yeah, I think if they do more DLC packs, I think that they would probably tap into another big Nintendo franchise. And Kirby's the one that sticks out in my head right off the bat.
Well, and with all the F-Zero cross promotion, what about having actually an F-Zero character as a racer?
Captain Falcon.
Yeah.
Star Fox would be cool.
Oh yeah. And the zero gravity setup of Mario Kart 8, and that there are already outer space tracks. Star Fox would be an awesome inspiration for some more outer space racing mayhem. Ooh, that's getting me excited. I like that. And like a little R-Wing or a battle tank type of kart would be pretty sweet.
Definitely.
Also, Evan challenged me last week. I don't know if it was a direct challenge. It was kind of an implicit challenge to get through Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, and I am plugging away. It's my new nightly ritual before I go to bed, and I've fallen right back into it. I used to do that a lot with my 3DS games. I would play a game before I went to sleep, but then I realized that I got better sleep and I went to sleep quicker if I read a book, something not electronic shining in my face. But you know what? For the sake of the challenge, I'm going to get back. I'm going to get through my backlog on my 3DS, since I can't play my Wii U games in bed yet. Maybe in my new apartment I'll be able to, but 3DS will fill that gaming need just fine, and I'm going to keep you updated. I'm plugging through, and it's great. It is very satisfying, and if you've considered playing an Ace Attorney game, you should, and you haven't tried one, this is actually not a bad one to start at all. And I almost thought about proactively downloading the DLC, and it's like, whoa, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Take a step back.
I haven't even finished the main game, and here I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna burn through this. I'm gonna put the DLC case in there. No, okay, I won't do that. As much as I'm really looking forward to the case where I think you defend a killer whale.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
So surreal. I don't know how it's going to be animated, but I'm sure it will be fantastic. So that's my gaming story for Nintendo related stuff.
That's good for Dual Destinies, because Capcom in Japan just put out a new trailer for the Great Ace Attorney that I was watching earlier today, and that looks really fantastic.
Oh yeah, that's the one that's set in the 1800s, and it features Sherlock Holmes and a little girl, Watson. Yeah, I am really excited about that. In fact, I don't have it in hand with me, but while I was in Japan last year, they're really big on paper protectors or sheet protectors. And they're just these large plastic sheep protectors. Gosh, I don't know what to call it. I don't know what the equivalent of it is in English. Sorry, I just kind of blinked there. I don't know what the name is of it, if there's something else. But it's basically a glorified folder. And I have these two glossy ones from the Great Ace Attorney. And that's what I put all my little notes in, and I take it to work. I parade that around work. And I've been doing it for months. I've been advertising that game with all of its Japanese language and everything on it at work. And it actually paid off. Somebody walked up to me, a coworker friend, and said, "What is that? What is that, a game that artwork is from?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's from the new Phoenix Wright game," which is misleading because it's Ace Attorney, not Phoenix Wright. He's like, "Really? Are those games any good? What is that on?" I'm like, "It's on 3DS and it's coming out in Japan, I think, this year, and hopefully
This summer
at some point."
Hopefully, I don't know if they've announced it for North America, but hopefully it looks really good.
And he said, "I've never played any of those games. Are they good?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? They're great. You should definitely play them." So maybe I've gotten someone else to fall into the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trap of awesomeness. I don't know. He loves Monster Hunter. So Evan, you'd probably be better friends with him than I would.
There we
So I'm
go.
not sure if a Monster Hunter fan would totally get into Ace Attorney, because after all, Evan has not
What's
played Ace Attorney games.
what's that supposed to mean?
I'm just painting with broad brush strokes
Mhm.
now, just kind of defining your character and then projecting it upon this other person.
Is he playing Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate on 3DS?
Yeah, I believe so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was really excited about it coming out, and then it came out, and so on and so forth.
And they
But he
do.
actually has an issue with the new 3DS XL. He did not like it. It cannot detect his eyes, so the super stable 3D does not work well for him. As
Oh
a
no.
side
Is
note,
it because of glasses maybe, or
he he has deeper set eyes, and his eyebrows are kind of low, and that's what he thinks it's attributed to. I'm not sure. Uh,
huh?
I haven't. The only other person I know who has said he's had problems with it, he attributed it to his glasses. This guy though doesn't wear glasses, so I don't
Hmm.
know. It's
That's
too bad.
unfortunate.
Yeah. Let's get into talking about news. So much news happened during the last week. Most notable for me, because I'm really looking forward to this game, is there was a massive Splatoon Direct. Here I thought it was going to be maybe 10, 15 minutes. It was over 30 minutes long, all this information about Splatoon. It was kind of, well, it was cheesy as usual, but it's kind of like a glorified walkthrough of the manual. It felt like I was getting a tutorial of the
The,
game, talking
the
through like,
first 20 minutes were pretty getting into minutia and pretty like stuff that you would pick up, I feel like, in the first few minutes.
yeah,
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's cool that Nintendo does that. They do like these ultra detailed let's play videos for themselves. But I think for people like us that are already intrigued by the game and stuff, we would like to get to the new information and not see like, here's how you aim a gun. You use the right analog stick, or you can use the gyro controls. And you're
mm-hmm.
just like, oh my gosh, please, Nintendo, get on to the next thing. Kind of feels like those early Zelda tutorials, like in
Oh
Skyward
yeah.
Sword, where you're just like, oh my gosh, I know that I press A to make the text go or whatever else. I know how to swing a sword, Nintendo. Please, please, please.
But that said, as someone who's really looking forward to the game, has still not had a chance to play it. I did miss the global test fire event, as Evan did as well.
Yes.
It was just fun to just see more of the game in action, see the individual weapons described, see some of the characters that I hadn't yet seen in screenshots or read about in marketing. And then there was a lot of information related to, it's kind of like a phased rollout of content. If
It's
Nintendo were a more insidious company, I would think they would be charging for this content. What did you think of that, Evan?
um so a lot of thoughts. Real quick, not to sidetrack
Overwhelmed.
anything. The multiplayer beta was a welcome surprise that they did a beta over this past weekend and everything. And I was stoked about that until they decided that it was only going to be for 3 hours, spread out over basically like what 16-hour time period
Yeah,
over the weekend, which was kind of head scratching to me. I don't know if this was something where Nintendo was worried of having it open for 24 or 48 hours that people would just get their fill on the game and they think they wouldn't buy it, so they had to limit it.
possibly.
I don't know if it was like server issues where they didn't feel like they could go up already, although I do know that review copies of Splatoon are going out, so I don't know if that really jives well with that. So I think it's awesome that I'm sure a lot of you got to play it and everything, but I had just life things going on with family members and everything, which was a lot of fun. But it was frustrating for me that we got such little notice and then there were only 3 hours to play it in. And that was really frustrating. I hope Nintendo going forward to do it, at least open up for like a 12-hour period. Don't do these 1 hour blocks or something. That was frustrating. But in regard to what you're saying, they're rolling out a bunch of stuff after launch, and there's the good of it. New maps, modes, and gear will be free DLC.
Yeah.
They didn't have like specific dates, but that'll be coming out afterward. That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm not like against maybe Nintendo charging for gear or something, but for maps and modes, I think it's really smart to keep the player base together.
Yeah.
We've seen other big multiplayer games kind of get divided by multiplayer maps. Titanfall is one that comes to mind, and they've now opened up all the maps and decided that's not a smart development. The bummer, the thing that I think you're talking about to bring it all back together is the fact this is something we've talked about over and over again, and I've had my fingers crossed. Party matchmaking and custom matches won't be coming until 3 months after the game launches in August, and that is just a head scratcher. The party matchmaking, something we really don't see that much in Nintendo games. It's something that I kind of beat my drum over and over again about Mario Kart 8. I wish it was in there. Basically, it's Noah and I could join up together and go into a public match together and stick together. That's not going to be there. The custom games as well, Noah. That was just, people were talking in regards to the voice chat, and we're not going to touch on that much because we've beat the drum on that so many times. But a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, you'll just do custom matches and do Skype chat and everything." That's not possible. I think that's gonna be tough for people to swallow. 3 months is a long time.
It is, and there are so many other games that are coming out. The initial wave of excitement for the game is definitely going to have passed by then. It's basically a season of the year has passed by. Summer will be winding down, and we'll be heading into fall, and that's when all of the huge holiday games start coming out on all the systems. We start getting inundated with commercials for stuff like that. And it's kind of a bummer because one of the things I wanted to do the most, Evan, was play this game with you at launch. And now that seems like that will be challenging at best. What I'll be getting instead is the equivalent of going to E3 last year and just playing a random game with strangers, which it just feels really unfinished. It all comes back to a single theme, whether it's the lack of voice chat or they don't have party games or matchmaking set up or custom matches set up, that the beta was only an hour long. It just seems like Nintendo is out of its element, not prepared for this game, not ready to launch the game, and are trying to spin it in a way it's like, oh, well, we'll tease stuff out throughout the summer. And then we're going to have these cool Splatfests, but they're not going to occur regularly. So we're creating all these weird things.
That's an MMO type thing, or the Splatfest thing too, and a Destiny. That's very.
Yes.
It's like you said. Nintendo. People are saying that we haven't seen Nintendo do an online shooter like this, and you can kind of tell that they are a fish out of water. Not to be a pun there, but it is a pun, and you will like it. They are. It's cool to see them take these steps, but at the same time, there's some of the missteps are cringeworthy. The party matchmaking, I was 50-50 on. I'm glad it's coming. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The custom matches, though, Noah, we've talked about this. People are like, "Oh, this could be Nintendo's big esports push, competitive game battles." How do you do that when you can't even do custom matches? You can't host tournaments. You can't do anything. It's just totally random. The best that we can do when the game launches is it's the Mario Kart 8 setup, which is not ideal whatsoever. One of us gets into a match and the other person just tries to join before 7 other people fill up that lobby. And then sometimes we're on a team, sometimes we're not. I mean, at least we can get on Skype, or well, we probably honestly get on our Xbox Ones and do party chat. Just so we
Totally
could
will.
talk. I don't even think strategy would be a big thing. No, I mean be just like this. We could talk
Yeah.
about what we like about the game and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting to see, like you said, how much of a player base is still engaged then. I mean, what we're hearing, everyone's loving it, and there will be people, but those are just two integral things to any online shooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something else that kind of stood out to me was the number of views. So I was checking it out on YouTube to watch the direct afterwards, and I don't have these numbers at my fingertips. I was trying to get them at the last second just now, but there's only been 255,000 views of this direct. Now, granted, it is a long direct, but
Game specific too, which
yeah,
is
I feel like it kind of telegraphs the amount of interest and excitement for this game potentially. And it makes me a little bit nervous because to me, the game looks so cool and the world looks so well fleshed out, all these cool characters, all this cool personality, its own lingo.
the
And
gear looks awesome.
oh my goodness, and the design is great. And
Mm-hmm.
this is just the fanboy part of me. I want this game to kick butt. I want this game to have legs and be a really notable star in the Wii U lineup. And then it's so well received and so acclaimed that we see a sequel to it on another system. And this isn't a one and done thing because, like you were saying, Evan, this game I do believe has potential to become an esports title for Nintendo, to have maybe not as, I don't know. I shouldn't say no. I never say never, but it may not have the same kind of legacy that Smash Brothers does, but it could. It could have something of that angle, and I wanted to see it do well. And when you see all these fumbles and this lack of interest, it just makes me like cringe and worry about, well, what if I become a huge dedicated fan that wants to play this game all the time, but nobody else got on the hype train leading up to it, and 6 months from now it's like, oh, I want to play some more of that. There's nobody to play with, even with party matchmaking. That's the worst case scenario, and I don't want to happen. I want it to be really awesome, but I'm getting nervous.
I mean, I'm gonna be optimistic here. Nintendo is being upfront. The free DLC is a very positive thing. Let's hope they continue to listen to the fan base about what needs to be added, and
Yeah.
let's see how this game evolves. And I hope that we see Splatoon not only go on for a year, but years, like you're saying. And I hope that Nintendo continues to tweak, do these Splatfest types events and maybe different kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can set up tournaments and everything else. I'll be really curious to see how this community supports this game, but also how Nintendo responds to that community. Because with any type of online shooter, you need to listen to that feedback
Yes.
and evolve the game as it goes on. And yes, it is very frustrating and very troubling that some of these features aren't there at launch, but it's also a positive sign that Nintendo is being upfront, saying it's going to be there at some point in August. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed. Maybe it'll get moved up, and hopefully we'll continue to see these big features come to the game and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited. I'm bummed about the global test fire thing, but it's very positive word coming out of that multiplayer beta demo. So we're just weeks away. It feels like just yesterday we were seeing it at E3, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
shoot up on our screens and everything. And it's crazy that it's almost here. It's almost becoming real. And I am getting more and more excited.
Me too. Me too. I get goosebumps thinking about it. And then I think, man, that is right before I move. None of my hardware is going to be connected. Nothing's going to be plugged in. I think it literally comes out the day before I move. So there's no way I'll be playing it within days of the game coming out. But that's okay.
I mean, sans Call of Duty installments, the last time people were excited about an online shooter for Wii was The Conduit. And that was what, 2009?
Yeah.
2009. So it's been 6 years since there's been like a Wii exclusive online shooter game that I feel like has gotten this much fanfare and hype. And I would say Splatoon right now is probably, even on a very much smaller install base, there is much more excitement over Splatoon than there was over The Conduit. So
yeah,
it's going to be cool.
Hopefully it will have a better track record than the Conduit did, which was unfortunate. A lot of people got upset about that game. If there was one other game, and I don't think it even got to the Conduit Heights, was the remake of GoldenEye on Wii. That was
Yeah,
another big deal.
that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's
Nope.
very few and far between.
Yeah, it's rare. You hit the nail on the head. It is not common for us to be looking forward to this type of game on a Nintendo system, but here we are. So that's great. Next thing we want to talk about, this came out of nowhere. Nintendo and Universal have set up a licensing agreement for Universal to just start creating and hosting Nintendo-themed rides and attractions at its parks, such as Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure
How
across
excited
the
are you?
US and around the world. I am super excited. I just went to Disney and Universal a few weeks ago, and I'm ecstatic about that because I love theme parks and I love rides. What was your initial reaction?
I'm not like a big theme park person. I mean, this makes perfect sense. When Nintendo announced Nintendo Land, people are like, why isn't there a Nintendo Land of some sorts at a
Yeah.
Universal or whatever? It was just like one of those things that I guess people, I'm sure there are people out there thinking about that, but when Nintendo announced a Nintendo Land, it was just kind of like that thing that clicked like, wait, why don't you have any roller coasters, Nintendo, or why don't you have anything going on? And we're seeing that Iwata, when he said that they were going to license Nintendo characters, he was not joking around. I mean, we're just seeing Nintendo license out their stuff more and more as the months wear on. And this just seems like a match made in heaven. It's just a no-brainer to me. I immediately thought of you when I saw it, Noah, because I know that you're really big on theme park rides and attractions, and you had such a good time. When you were away a couple of weeks ago, you were at Disney and Universal, like you said. And there's so many cool things they could do. An F-Zero roller coaster. I mean, are you kidding? What's more perfect than an F-Zero roller coaster?
Well, maybe a Metroid one would be pretty cool. Or maybe some kind of shooting gallery ride that's Star Fox themed or Metroid themed.
Luigi's Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because when I first thought about it, I was thinking, well, when I think of a Mario themed ride, I think of the little kid rides that are Disneyland, Disney World, like Ariel's Journey or Peter Pan's Flight, and it's just a little thing for little kids that's cute and charming potentially, but not that exciting. But if you look at if when I thought of other franchises from Nintendo, such as Zelda, and then of course the sci-fi ones, Metroid and Star Fox and F-Zero, it's like, oh, that could be so cool. It would be really neat.
If there is a life-size Hyrule, I'm there. I will definitely go there. And I can like go into a milk bar and hear Nintendo music and everything. Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah. It would be perfect at Islands of Adventure, where they have little themed areas related to specific licensed franchises, whether it's Harry Potter or Marvel superheroes or Dr. Seuss. And coming up, there's a King Kong one.
I want to go to Harry Potter World. That is one attraction that would get me.
You would love it. Speaking from experience, been a couple times. It's amazing. But yeah.
So what is being a theme park guy? That's how I'm going to dub you now. Noah, theme park guy. You have a new middle name. What first pot, like, what is your ideal situation? What comes out of this? What would you like to see?
Well, the conservative way would be a single ride or a single attraction at a Universal Park, such as there's a Revenge of the Mummy roller coaster, and there's a Transformers 3D ride experience, and then there's a single Harry Potter ride. Actually, there's several of those. I should mention that as an example. There's a Hulk roller coaster. The conservative would be one idea around that. What I would ideally like is what I mentioned earlier, is something the Islands of Adventure route, where it's not a full-size theme park, but it's not just a single building or attraction. Like the Simpsons ride is another example. The Men in Black ride, another example. Really, really cool things, but that's it. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more to it. Whereas in Islands of Adventure, there's entire structures and there's multiple rides and experiences for all different age groups. I'd really like to see that. It's not a full commitment to a true gigantic Nintendo Land theme park, which would be my ultimate dream, but like a little miniature theme park within a theme park, all Nintendo themed. And I would love that. I would be there opening day if I could.
It sounds really cool. And I'm just wondering what Nintendo licenses next. And I'm guessing we're going to start hearing about movies and TV shows.
Exactly.
I think that's the next shoe that's going to drop. We're going to start hearing about those projects in a year or so.
It's kind of weird to think, but Nintendo could be expanding its fan base in a different way where there are people who are fans only of the TV shows or only of the movies and never play the video games, but they love this other take on Nintendo property that we've known for decades and played video games with, and we've just thought of as video games. But just to imagine that is, it's kind of a weird world in a way. I mean, we're used to merchandising Pokemon toys and bedspreads and other random abstract things, cereals and stuff like that. But to have something that could have a huge fan base around it, but the people didn't actually cross pollinate into video games would be really interesting, but entirely possible.
I mean, I think it's going to be huge. I know a lot of people my age or older or a little younger that grew up playing Nintendo platforms, but really don't have an interest in having a dedicated game console today. But I'm sure Netflix Legend of Zelda series or a movie or these theme park rides, they would be much more intrigued about and look into going. I mean, there's someone that might buy a Mario Brothers t-shirt, but they're never going to buy the console or anything because of the fond memories they had or whatever. And once the smartphone games hit, we're supposed to get one by the end of the year, and then they're only going to do 5, it sounds like. So these are supposed to be huge. I mean, who knows the content, but they want them to be huge hits. It'll be interesting to see how that goes on. We're really seeing Nintendo kind of broaden its entertainment appeal, which just makes me think of years and years ago when the Wii and DS were in their heyday and Reggie and Iwata talking about, like, we're not competing against other game consoles, we're competing against all entertainment and everything. So that's what that always makes me think about. But yeah, it'll be, I'm curious if there'll be any licensing that could come out of left field that really surprise us. I feel like it's all made a lot of sense so far. But
and as a video game fan, stuff like this is much more easy. It's much easier for me to get excited about these items versus the sleep monitor, which is so abstract and I can't get my head around it. And it doesn't sound fun and it doesn't really pluck the nostalgia strings, so to speak. Where these theme park rides, TV shows, I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally get into that. So, I'd still rather be having my entertainment time spent playing a video game, and it's a video game, versus watching a TV show based on one. But it might be kind of cool to still have Nintendo in my world in other ways.
Well, the positive is the licensing shouldn't be taking away too much from Nintendo's internal development studios.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Now, getting on to financial results, Nintendo has released some new stats on its business performance. And of course, Amiibo continues to be a huge success. 10.5 million figurines have been shipped worldwide, with 66% of that number going to North America alone, the most popular marketplace for Amiibo and Nintendo currently. That said, how will Wave 4 play out? I still don't know. Will these numbers take a sudden downturn with all the anger and rage and sadness that comes when Wave 4 comes out? I don't know.
I don't think so. It's crazy that North America has 66%. I believe Europe's around 20%, Japan 11%. And then I think Australia down under is about 3%. And I guess to an extent, like, you've been to Japan, you can get a lot more figures based on Nintendo properties. So this is something that's basically pretty new for North America, especially it's always awesome having Brett on, knowing that there's never been a Star Fox figure, for instance, and stuff like that. But it's just crazy to see how much North America is getting into the Amiibo craze more than any other country.
Although I did have a fun moment, if you follow me on Twitter, speaking of Amiibo, during the last week, where I wistfully went over to Toys R Us's website and I thought, do they have a page for the Froakie Amiibo? Because, Froakie or Greninja, sorry, getting my evolutions mixed up. And I went to look up for the Greninja Amiibo just to look at the figurine, and I looked it up. And then all these other little Pokemon figurines popped up that are not amiibo, and they're incredible little figurines and statues. And there's a 3-pack of Froakie and his 2 evolutions, and the Greninja is in a mirror of the exact pose that the amiibo is. All 3 of those figurines, $18 compared to the $13 that the Greninja amiibo that you probably can't even get costs. And just like, I thought about that, and I thought, if I'm going to spend any money on a Froakie or a Greninja figurine, I almost might just get this thing that's a sure thing. It's in stock, and I get 3 different figurines, including one that's in the exact same pose as the amiibo, just a mirror reflection. Like, wow. Granted, it doesn't have amiibo functionality, but I think a lot of us out there are not collecting amiibo for the functionality because there's yet to be a really compelling reason for that.
Unless there's an awesome Gray Ninja Mario Kart 8 suit, then on which case.
Yeah. You know what? I'm still such a Roy fanboy that I've yet to use any of those and race as my me. I just like Roy.
Is there going to be a Roy amiibo?
I don't know how they're going to handle Bowser Jr. amiibo.
I'm guessing it's just Bowser.
Just the one.
Yeah.
Bummer, because I would love to have all the little Koopalings in their own little clown cars. That would be really cool.
I bet you get Koopa. If amiibo continues on this track of just being super popular, I think the Koopalings would come at some point.
Yeah, I bet they appear in another Mario game in the future, and that Mario game has its own set of amiibo, right?
The only fear I have of amiibo getting more and more popular is you're talking about functionality, and we haven't seen good functionality. I just hope that the scales don't tip the other way, where we're getting cool functionality locked away from amiibo. And I know people are already a little concerned about that with Splatoon. They kind of said like, oh, you can unlock these mini games and missions and gear to amiibo and stuff, and that's a balancing act. So be careful what you wish for.
Nintendo would need to have those amiibo more readily available. They need to figure out their stock issues before they start locking away awesome functionality, because it's just not available. It's not available enough to people. And so then what you end up doing is what happened with Hyrule Warriors, where you have any random amiibo just scanning in and unlocking content because it's just like, well, they can't get what they probably would be required to, so let's just make any amiibo unlock stuff in the game, which is kind of anticlimactic. Our final news. No, wait. There's more. There's 2 more news stories to go through. Now, on the other side of the business, the actual annual profit and hitting forecasted sales numbers, Nintendo, for the first time in 4 years, reported an annual profit, which is a long time coming. And I remember, I felt like this may be a faulty memory, Evan, and so you write news a lot more regularly and frequently than I do anymore. But I think that it seemed every one of the last 4 years, Iwata was saying, we'll return to profit next year. We'll return to profit next year. It's going to be about probably a year and a half more. Just give me one more chance. And finally, his goose is no longer cooked, and things have turned around, I think, primarily for Amiibo's sake.
And the big name games, the Pokemon 3DS remakes, I think, are at like 9.4 million.
Wow.
Mario Kart 8 and Super Smash Brothers both. I think Super Smash Brothers across both platforms is around the 9-10 million mark, and Mario Kart's above 5 million. Plus, I think the DLC for both Smash and Mario. I mean, those were the huge drivers, I think, throughout the year, which that's not surprising.
Yeah, but unfortunately, those awesome games are not moving units as Nintendo had hoped. Wii U only sold 3, quote unquote. And this is all perspective, I suppose.
Only works.
Wii U only sold 3.38 million units. It was projected to sell about 200,000 more. The original projection was 3.6, and said it was
super modest.
Yeah, definitely is. Considering how many units Xbox One and PlayStation 4 is selling on a monthly basis, these are definitely modest numbers.
I mean, just back into to always put in perspective, back in Wii's heyday, they were pushing, I think, 14 to 18 million per year.
Yeah, so a fourth of that performance in the Wii's heyday.
Still didn't hit it. I'm sorry. That's just it's shocking to me that they didn't hit 3.6.
Well,
They
they were a lot closer this time because before they had to have their projection, wasn't they projected like 12 and
oh, the
got
year
down to
before this they projected 9 or 12 million in the first year, and it just kept getting smaller and smaller. I mean, they increased over last financial year. I think it was like 2.42 or something, but people thought 3.6 was super modest because you had Mario Kart 8 and Smash coming out. I mean, and there were other games as well, and still couldn't reach that number. um yeah, yikes.
and the 3DS, unfortunately, even with the really awesome new iteration to release in the last year, the new 3DS XL or the new 3DS, if you live overseas, in spite of that, the original 12 million units projection for 3DS was not met. It was cut down to 9, and ultimately it sold 8.73 million.
Another yikes. That biggest misconception out there over the past couple of years is that 3DS has been this runaway success and is keeping Nintendo afloat and everything, and it's doing well, but it has missed projections year after year after year. It is not being the hit that Nintendo wants it to be or wanted it to be. So that's another kind of yikes, but it's great to hear that software is doing really well. And I think Nintendo is going to have, once again, modest expectations going forward and everything. And hopefully 3DS does better. I think the software over the past year wasn't there to kind of sustain it, but I feel like over the past few months and what we have looking ahead, hopefully we'll learn more at E3. I'm much more excited this year over last year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And the something that kept hanging over a lot of people's, or kept invading people's minds, and then was coming from analysts, particularly financial analysts, is with this not so great performance on both the console and the handheld front, surely the successor would be coming much sooner than Nintendo's traditional 5-year cycle. And this year, we did finally get news that a new system of sorts, whether it's console or handheld, we don't know, called the NX is under development, and that was all that we were told. And there's probably some analysts and shareholders out there that would love to see the NX come out as soon as next year. And if that were the case, of course, we'd want to hear about it, much more about it, this year. Well, Iwata has gone on the record just recently to state, don't expect to see NX in any form or even mentioned for the rest of this year. It will not be unveiled until 2016. That means no E3 presentations or even teasers, not showing the remote off like they did with Wii or the system. The translation of a quote from Iwata was, presently we cannot talk about the time period when it will go on sale or what it's like, because we are calling it a, quote, new concept, unquote. We are not thinking of this as a simple replacement for the 3DS or the Wii U. Now that last part of the sentence that Iwata said,
Third
really
pillar.
stood out to me. It's that third pillar, or is it potentially the hybrid machine that Evan keeps talking about?
I'm not sure. I obviously hope it's the hybrid machine. What it makes me think is that whatever software they're developing for 3DS or Wii U could be on the NX as well. So could we see just Mario Kart 8 with all this content move over and they continue to build the game? The same with Smash Brothers, the same with Splatoon? Or is it just some crazy controller concept where things are out there?
And we have the Zelda Wii U delay to take into consideration too. I
That
feel
could
like
be
that was
NX.
delayed for NX. Yeah, I think that's got to be happening. After Twilight Princess, I just expect it now.
My expectations from the very little we know, and obviously this can change, is the NX will be a hybrid type device and it'll be built on Wii U architecture. And I could see, but a boost. I don't think it'll be like a GameCube to Wii. I think we will see a little more of a leap forward, but I think we'll see just a lot of these big Wii U games continue to be developed and evolved on the system. I mean, why start from scratch with Smash Brothers? Why not just continue to find? I like to call it the League of Legends model or the Dota 2 model. Why
Mhm.
put out a sequel when you can just evolve these, maybe charge an upgrade fee, but then have DLC, just kind of reinventing it throughout the years and everything.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's definitely some the intention with all this DLC that we're seeing for both Smash and Mario Kart. Is there going to be a season 2 DLC pass for Mario Kart 8 announced at E3? Quite possibly. I mean,
That'd
who
be
knows how
cool.
many extra characters and stages we'll get with Smash Brothers? Maybe there'll be a season pass for that. That would be pretty cool too.
Yeah, I mean, Smash Brothers, as long as they're rebalancing and everything, you could see them just continue to add character after character. Stages or endless, third party characters. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're a third party and you're Nintendo, I mean, they've still got plenty of characters, as we know. They're asking for people's input, but you would think if you're a third party, you would probably almost be willing to pay Nintendo to have a character, especially when you have a game coming out, just the co-marketing
Mhm.
uh, with that and everything.
Mhm.
So yeah. I mean, Splatoon can be the same way. We can see game specific gear like Yarn Yoshi gear when that game comes out, or Zelda type gear that fits within that world, but kind of has uh, that promotional value to it. But I mean, it'd be cool to see it as well,
Mhm.
as long as there's no Slippy the Frog from Star Fox. It's my one oh no no Nintendo.
That is all the news that we wanted to get through. There was a lot of it was great after last week, and I think kind of the week before, not having a lot to talk about, to have a surprise jump of news of all different kinds to come out this week was really exciting in advance of E3, which gets ever closer. Just like Splatoon, it is only weeks away, which is kind of scary to think about.
33 days, 32 days.
Yeah, it's just a month out. I think middle of June ish.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready for it. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to. I'm fingers are crossed for all sorts of great new games being announced for both Wii U and 3DS. We'll see though. That's it for that. All of our news. Now we're going to jump into your feedback from last week's episode. Evan is going to take us through your emails and your comments. If you want to share any feedback for this week's episode, send it to show@nfmagazine.com if you're into email, or leave us a comment. Take it away, Evan.
Thanks, Noah. Our first email comes from Kasaki Project, who we always like to hear from. Kasaki Project says, Evan, on your discussion with finishing games, when I was young, I rarely finished games. Now that I pay for my own games and have responsibilities, I tend to beat my games more often than not, since I can't just buy new ones constantly. Also, my fiance gets mad if I don't finish them after spending all of that money on a game. So if you're wondering, Noah and I talked about, Noah was apologizing that we haven't beat games, and I made the proclamation that I bet it's more, or I bet it's rare for people out there to finish most of the games they have than not.
Mhm.
So it's cool to hear from Kasaki Project on that. Continuing on, as for Yooka-Laylee, I am excited. I really would love to see a 3D platformer revival. I never played Donkey Kong 64 and didn't get far in either Banjo game, so I'm not sure how much I'll like it. But I want this genre to come back, so I'm glad how successful the funding has been because I want others to do this as well. Hopefully with less of a collectathon focus, though. But I want 3D platforming to be more than a new Mario every 4 years.
Yes.
My thought for Pokemon Amiibo is this. Pokken Fighter is free to play, and you unlock the characters with an amiibo for each fighter.
Oh,
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, though.
yeah, it does, and it's a perfect next. It's a perfect card amiibo game to follow in Animal Crossing's footsteps, because I can't imagine Nintendo microwaving, manufacturing thousands, well, hundreds. Okay, I'm totally being hyperbolic. Hundreds of amiibo figurines for Pokemon. Although there are some figurines I would love to see.
It bringing up that because Bandai Namco's in charge of Pokken. Wonder how they're going to pronounce that. How would you pronounce it?
I I don't know. I mean, if you want to use the base Pokemon, Pokken seems like the right pronunciation, but it sounds really funny. So I don't know. Maybe not.
But remember, Bandai Namco teased that free-to-play Wii U exclusive game, that
Oh yeah,
action
the
part.
treasure hunting game.
Yeah, like in February. I wonder if ever, like, will that be at E3, or will that just be a game that was like, hey, we're going to do this, and we never hear about it again?
It'll be there. You have
Mm-hmm.
little faith.
Mm-hmm. I do have a little faith on that. Our next email comes from Chris, who wrote in and said, I have a question in regard to ethics in video gaming. When I updated my 3DS XL to the not so stupidly named new 3DS XL, I chose not to trade in my old system for a credit toward the new system. Instead, I decided to utilize my old system as sort of a street pass spot, if you will, where I have me in a lime green shirt with a birthday of February 29th. People have told me that utilizing the 3D in this way is cheating. What do you guys think about this?
I'm not sure I follow what's cheating about it. So Chris is using one 3DS just to harvest Mii's from Street Pass. Is that what you thought it was?
Just he can street pass every day with his other system.
So he's using the spare system, just taking it everywhere just to do Street Pass.
Well, no, he can street pass with that system. Make up.
Oh, he's street passing between the two systems.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
But I don't think it's cheating at all. If
No.
you have two systems, why? I mean, street pass is tough enough as it is. If you have an extra system, why not? Don't let people I'm not a big fan of people also telling, like, you're not supposed to play a game like that or whatever. If you're, I mean, that's like people who speed run. There are people out there that are like, oh, you're not supposed to play that's outside the boundaries of the rules or whatever. I think that's goofy. Do what you want if you own both 3DS systems.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No rules here. Do what you want. Our next the Nintendo Outlaws. Our next email comes from Nintendo Dad. I can't tell you how excited I was to hear that Yooka-Laylee is the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie. Although I've never supported anything on Kickstarter except for NF Magazine, thank you, I was set to drop my money to show my support. That is, until I saw the overwhelming support and backing this game received. I decided they don't need my money until after the game releases. I've been gaming since Atari and ColecoVision. Did I say that right? I know that.
ColecoVision?
ColecoVision. My goodness. I get on the show and just froze up. I've been gaming since Atari and ColecoVision. Looking back, my favorite gaming time period is the Nintendo 64 era. My favorite type of game from that era is the 3D platformer. I just love exploring every nook and cranny of the Nintendo 64 platformers. Of the most popular ones, I'd rank them like this. Number 1, Banjo-Kazooie. Number 2, Super Mario 64. Number 3, Banjo-Tooie. Number 4, Donkey Kong 64. The characters, charm, humor, and music of Banjo-Kazooie pushed it over the top for me. Banjo-Tooie was also great, but the worlds were so huge it was easy to get confused. Even though Donkey Kong 64 is last on my list, I still think it's great. I played through to 100% completion twice, and I'm currently playing a third time, having it just downloaded on the Wii U Virtual Console. I hope Yooka-Laylee can live up to my expectations.
There's some cheesy cliche or phrase that I want to use here, like maybe it's great gamers aren't made, they're born. That's what it is. And I would say clearly Nintendo Dad has been 100%ing and completing games since he was a little kid, and I'm just in awe of that. And meanwhile, Evan and I, well, no, my legacy has been of not finishing games, and that continues. It hasn't changed.
Don't try to project yourself onto me.
But Evan claimed that
no.
a few games in the past, but not anymore.
A few games. I've completed quite a lot of games.
Every game. Games.
You're the worst. I just beat Elliot Quest, for example. So yeah, don't try to project your non-completing ways on me. I don't want to have any of that.
But neither of us are Nintendo dads at the end of the day, is my point.
Yeah. It's impressive, Nintendo Dad. We tip our hats to you.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Continuing on to comments, we start with old school 1990s who wrote, I was able to play the Splatoon Global Testfire and I had a lot of fun. It took a few tries to get into a match, but when successful, I stayed connected with no lag for the entire hour. I thought the experience was fresh and the gameplay was great. The gyro controls are the default controls, which I don't like, but at least you could change that in the demo. I think Nintendo is onto something great. I just hope that the lack of voice chat and other features don't hinder the success of this new IP. I will definitely buy this game at launch after playing the demo.
Wow. Another believer has been made. Very cool to hear some hands-on impressions from the Splatoon global test fire. Yeah, but we couldn't play together. Old school 1990s. The other thing, gyro controls need to die. This gets into just like when we were in the Wii generation and using the remote, shaking the remote to do an action in the game. It was a bad idea the first year, and it was a horrible idea 3 years in, where they were still trying to shoehorn these horrible motion controls in. Gyro controls are right there. Take them out. No more. Make that the option, not the default.
You heard it here first.
That's my rant.
You tell them.
Yeah.
You tell them. I am jealous that you got to try out the Global Test Fire old school 1990s, but hopefully we can play together at some point when it comes out. Our next comment comes from Benjamin A. I absolutely agree that Nintendo should have their own online store for Amiibo that are no longer in print. The 1 to 2 week wait would not even be an issue if we were guaranteed to get them. The struggle is real.
I love a custom Amiibo shop idea. I mean, Blizzard does that with World of Warcraft, where you can get a custom figurine made of your character. Well, maybe it's not literally Blizzard, but there are stores out there that you can send a screenshot of your character with all of the thousands of combinations that you could do in terms of coloring and the armor sets, and then what is your facial configuration, what colors did you choose for your character's hair and skin tone and everything. You can have a custom on-demand figurine made. Now, granted, that is a very customized piece of art, and it's much more expensive than an Amiibo, but why can't we get a supply of mass-produced Amiibos available somewhere else? I'm really glad, Benjamin, you and I are on the same page about that.
This won't happen, but I wonder if a company like Mad Catz or whatever has tried to like jump into the Skylanders Disney Infinity Amiibo game with some type of figure. They've had to at least reach out, right, to do some kind of like secondary type thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in the accessory business.
So
yeah, I would.
What if there were a Mad Catz brand of Amiibo?
Yeah. Which they make like good stuff. I'm sorry. When I think of Mad Catz, I think of like 20 years ago Nintendo 64 stuff that was just like dreadful. And it may not have been Mad Catz. I can't remember, but I just remember you did not want to go with third-party controller accessory stuff. So I just think worst thoughts possible when I think of like off-brand Amiibo and just like
I just have these visions of it just looks like a really bad manufacturing defect. This is like Peach without her legs was one thing, and you just had no idea what monstrosities would come out of the off-brand Amiibo manufacturing.
Oh, man. Yeah, perfect. But yes, I wish I could get a NES on the Nintendo online store. That would be awesome. Our next comment comes from Headset Guy. I agree. Donkey Kong 64. This is such a great comment. Headset Guy writes, I agree. Donkey Kong 64 didn't age well at all.
I just love how succinct he is. He has one thing to say. He says it in a single sentence, and it's just right to the point. Didn't age well at all. Yeah. End of comment. Awesome.
I think that's our first feedback from Headset Guy, and just bravo. That was awesome.
Well
or girl. Oh, it's a guy. Headset Guy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great. Nope, that game does not.
Don't try it. Don't bother.
Yeah. Our next comment comes from Elated C to share my thoughts on gaming while in college. And to just pause right there, we had a person write in asking about taking their Wii U system with them to college. So here's a different perspective. From Elated C to share my thoughts on gaming while in college. When I was an undergrad, I was so focused on my schoolwork that I barely had any time to play games during the school year. Now that I'm in grad school, I can only afford to game for about 2 to 3 hours per week, and so find it hard to play anything more than short or multiplayer-focused games during the semester. Unfortunately, this isn't very conducive to playing my favorite genre of games, RPGs. I've thus gotten into the tradition of picking one major RPG to play during my 2-month summer vacation. It's great to really sink my teeth into a 50 to 100 hour game that I know I never get through when I'm in school. The past 3 years, I played Final Fantasy VI, Fire Emblem Awakening, and Xenoblade Chronicles. And this year, I'm planning on playing Dragon Age Inquisition.
Wow.
That's not a Nintendo
game. You just fell right into that, Evan.
How dare you? Continuing on, do you guys have any summer gaming traditions, a specific game or genre that you think goes with summer? I know a lot of people like to replay one of their favorite games during the summer, but I'd rather use my free time to immerse myself in a totally new game.
Well, the summer game that Evan and I have frequently mentioned on the show and previous shows is Attack of the Friday Monsters on 3DS.
Uh-huh.
And it's a game that I think we've both talked about, like, man, I would love to replay that in the summertime. I actually have not done that, but
me neither.
A game
talk is cheap.
It sure is. But I think at the end of the day, for both Evan and I, we don't have spare gaming time readily available, and so I would definitely try something new. And I get so excited by the new. I mean, you hear me babbling about Splatoon. I'm all excited about that because it's just around the corner. But if there were a game that I'd replay, it would probably be Attack of the Friday Monsters, something that's kind of small and bite-sized. So if you wanted to carve something out of your big summer schedule, they'd see something like that, a downloadable title might be kind of a cool companion and mix it up. Although the games you mentioned are excellent titles across the board, it sounds like. So you're not doing it wrong. It sounds like you've got a really good plan there, and I'm impressed.
Yeah, Attack of the Friday Monsters is a great suggestion by Noah. For a little bit there, I used to beat Contra every summer. I'd basically get where I could do like a not a flawless run, but wouldn't die once or whatever. I had everything memorized. Not so much playing the same game, but growing up, I used to play Madden or NCAA football every July and August back to back. It's been almost a decade since I've done that. But not really. I've never had like a summer tradition necessarily.
Yeah, me neither.
I feel like for Christmas, there were a few years in a row that I played the original Legend of Zelda. But other than that, it's really cool. I really liked hearing about your summer tradition, and anyone else out there, summer or winter traditions, please write us in.
Definitely.
Let us know. And thank you so much for sharing Late at Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Our next comment comes from Prince Riot. Yeah, so true. I rarely beat the games I buy. The only game I've beaten so far is Bayonetta 1 and 2, and it took me a long time to complete the wonderful 101.
This is making me feel a little bit better, Prince Riot. We're not some kind of slackers, and it's not some isolated phenomenon here on the NF show. Now, if you're a writer at the NF magazine, you have to do a review of a game. Of course, you're going to play the game all the way through. So when there's homework, gaming homework, of course, the games get played all the way through. But when it comes to casual time and it's your free time, if the game's not really clicking or just drawing you in, it's hard to put yourself through it. And it takes me back to the beginning of the show, and I was talking about Ace Attorney, and it's like, oh my goodness, that game's been out for over a year. But once I got into the rhythm and started saying, all right, I'm going to do it, I'm going to focus on it, it's been like, all right, I'm looking forward to it now. It's not just something like, oh, I could do that. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. It's not going to happen. I'm going to bed. But it's kind of cool to get into rhythm. But it is hard, and especially when there's a game that's super challenging. Kudos to you. Bayonetta, those games are not easy, and neither is Wonderful 101. So if you're going through and you're finishing games that have a lot of challenge in them, all the more credit to you.
Definitely. Our next comment comes from Nintendo Dude GCN. Nice to hear your Harmonite impressions, Evan. I actually just got the game with some of my Club Nintendo coins too. My thoughts on the game are very similar to yours. I think your frustrations are well warranted. I would get pretty frustrated having to start an entire level over for messing up just one jump or attack. I played the main game all the way through, and I agree with you that it is an average game overall. Concept is cool, but I just don't think it was implemented well. Evan, you should definitely give the 3D Collectathon platformer a try. Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 are two of my favorite Nintendo 64 games, and honestly, they are even some of my top favorite games of all time. I'd say Banjo-Kazooie is better, but despite the bad rap, no pun intended, Donkey Kong 64 gets, I still think it is a very fun and excellent game. The worlds and environments are pretty amazing, and I actually liked being able to switch between the different characters. Watch the Splatoon Direct, and my excitement for this game continues to increase. I'm impressed with the post-launch support this game will be getting, though I would think some of the content, like friend-only online matches, would be right out of the box. I'm also surprised that the amiibo actually have a meaningful purpose in gameplay. It makes me consider buying a 3-pack. Hopefully these amiibo will be more common. What about you guys? Plans on getting Splatoon amiibo?
Evan dryly predicted that Splatoon amiibo, the 3-pack, would be easy to come by. I have not believed that, and when a moment appeared, a window of opportunity within which I could order the 3-pack, even though I just was thinking, no, don't do it, I did it. So I have pre-ordered the 3-pack, and watching the Splatoon Direct made me feel a little bit better about that purchase. And plus, they're great designs.
They look
great
cool.
figurines.
Yeah, I agree. I have not gotten them. The only way I will pick them up is if I'm in a store and I look at them and I'm like, yeah, this is cool.
Well, you only have 2 amiibo right now still, too. Isn't that true?
Yeah. What are you trying to say?
I'm just saying that the odds of you getting any new amiibo at all are very low, considering your willpower or the size of your existing collection.
We'll see. We'll see who I deem worthy to join Mega Man and Samus. We'll see. The functionality is not going to make me get them, but they do look really good.
Yeah.
So, and I would hope that they're readily available. So, yeah, I'm not playing this go into GameStop reserve type stuff. I'm not leaving the house to get an amiibo. I don't think Amazon's put in their Wave 4 stock for amiibo yet. To pre-order.
Yeah, it feels like we've been waiting weeks for that.
And maybe they're trying to make sure they get specific numbers, because haven't like Toys R Us or Target had to cancel? Yeah. So yeah, that's crazy, but that's cool. But that's all for feedback this week on episode 66. Thank you, all of you, to our viewers, our listeners. It's such great feedback, such great questions. Can't look to see what we have next week.
Yeah, there was actually several names that I didn't recognize, so I think we have some new commenters in there, which is also really cool. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch or listen to our show, and then going a mile further and providing some feedback. That always makes our show all the more fun and worthwhile. We hope you like this episode. Again, we apologize for getting off to a late start this evening. Hopefully that's just a one-time thing. Technical difficulties come and go with these whole online enterprises, unfortunately. Let us know what you thought of the show. We will be back next week, hopefully with another surprise set of news or other things. Until then, have a great week. Keep gaming. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.